are changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world.
Living down here in Florida, there are t-shirt stores everywhere, especially around the beaches. And they're one of the t-shirts that you often see that's really funny is, I do what the stories in my head tell me to do. Now that's funny because in some ways, it's uncomfortably true. For many years, people said that, talking to yourself is a sign of mental illness, until we realized that we all talk to ourselves, sometimes out loud, but certainly within ourselves. We constantly have this commentary that is going on in our head. More than just a commentary, we actually create stories around every interaction that we have. Now, why do we do that? Well, if you go back 10,000 years ago, Homo sapiens, which we are, that is our species, Homo sapiens was not the only brand of human on the market at the time. 10,000 years ago, there were 6 other different humanoid species on this planet. What made the Homo sapiens become the dominant one? Well, Homo sapien means thinking man. Homo erectus means standing man. Homo sapiens not only think, but we have the capacity to tell stories. Not only to tell stories to ourselves, but we, because of our stories, developed language which gave us the capacity to share our stories. And if you think about it, everything of society is a form of a story. We come together. Why? Because we've told ourselves we come together. Now, really, we come together for mutual protection, et cetera, et cetera. But within this particular group, whatever that group is, whether it's a church or a business or a Cub Scout group, the story is this is why we're here and this is how we interact, all right? Now, 10,000 years ago, you had 6 different types of human beings struggling for scant resources in many cases. The Homo sapiens, us, were capable of telling bad stories about the other people, literally, such that ultimately Homo sapiens banded together and exterminated over time the other humans. Now, you can do research on this. Please do, if you don't believe me. But the point is, the reason we tell ourselves stories in our head, and the reason as soon as we get with other people, we share other stories, either positive or negative, is because it is built into our very survival. The reason we tell ourselves stories is to survive. Why do we do it? Because it's worked. It's worked for so long. People have survived, we individually have survived because of the stories we tell ourselves. And we take on the stories of our parents, we take on the stories of our society, we take on the story of our churches. Exactly. Culture is the stories we tell each other that define how we live day to day. Excellent, Ed. Great comment. Culture is exactly that. So collectively, we individually tell ourselves stories. Then we get with someone else who agrees with that story, then other people who agree with that. And before we know that, we've got a group of friends, or we've got a company, or we've got something, but it's all based on stories. Now the question is, if everything we've built has been through the result of the collaborative nature of telling and getting other people to buy into our story, do you also realize that all of your problems come from the stories you tell yourself? The stories we tell ourselves most often are, I can't. I can't. It's amazing how many times when I'm out doing the complaint-free message, speaking to audiences around the world, and I encourage people, I always invite them to go 21 days in a row without complaining. Take the complaint-free challenge. So often people will say, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. people who have never tried. It's amazing how many times when you invite people to do something, from playing a card game if they've never played cards, to jumping out of an airplane. Oh, I can't do that. I could never do that. What they mean is, by the way, they don't mean they can't. Can't is a physical thing. I cannot physically do that. They're saying, oh, I can't ever see myself doing that. Literally, the story they're telling themselves in the head. I can't ever see myself doing that. That is the story that they are telling in their head. So why do most of the stories that we tell ourselves about others and ourselves tend to be negative? Why do human beings have what psychologists call a negativity bias? Because as I said, it works. It's kept us safe. If there are a group of 1,000 people walking towards us, our minds are going to do one of two things. We've talked about this one. Whenever we see people, our minds instantly try and diagnose, is that person a threat or a potential mate? And then after that, it seeks to subcategorize a person. So if we see people coming at us, 1,000 people walking at us like down a hill, all right? We're going to look at that, and our mind is going to perceive a disproportionate amount of people as threats, because it's better to be safe than dead. It's better to be safe than dead. At some core level, our egos and all are there to keep us literally alive. And so it is better for us to throw people out and opportunities out, and that's where the problem comes. Things that we may never have tried, that we try and actually realize, oh my God, I love this. This is so much fun. I have a friend who did not snow ski until she was in her 30s, had never been skiing. Now she skis all the time and loves it and feels like it's the thing that just completes her. It's amazing. When we tell ourselves a different story, I can try this. Maybe the story we don't have to tell ourselves is I can do this, but I can try this. I can try this. Don't say you can't if it's something that you might actually benefit from and enjoy. I decided to do my own new 21-day challenge, and that is to go 21 days in a row, swimming laps for 30 minutes a day. I made it a total of 9 days, and then we got a tropical storm here. There was whitecaps in the pool. There was no way I could go down there and swim. So instead, I went to the gym here in my building, and they have a rowing machine. Now, I've never done one of these rowing machines before. And so I started doing it. At first, I thought, this is awkward, this is uncomfortable, et cetera, et cetera. And then I realized that it had a little thing called games, where by rowing at different paces, you can avoid sharks and eat gobble fish and score points. All of a sudden, I'm having a blast. But prior to that point, I could never see myself. You see the story I told myself? I could never see myself using a rowing machine, and certainly never, ever enjoying it. So I want you to understand that you constantly tell yourself the story. There's an entire field of psychology, which I support in as much as I understand it, called narrative psychology. Narrative means story. The stories that we tell ourselves define our lives, define our relationships, define our health. I know a lot of people now that I live down here in Florida. I meet people, I'll be 61 in a few months, right? I know people down here who are 61 who get out and walk 5 to 10 miles a day and do push-ups and etc. And then I know people who what I call pool manatee. A pool manatee is somebody who gets a swim noodle and just bobs around the pool all day. Now, they're the same age, but they're going to have very different outcomes in life because one tells themselves a story, I want to live long, feel healthy, feel active, and the other one says, basically, what do you want from me? I'm old. I think it was Wayne Dyer who said, never let an old person move into your body. I agree with that. Tell yourselves better stories about your body. Tell yourself better stories about your mind. And when it comes to aging, do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rage at close of day. Tell yourself that you are youthful, that you are fit, that you are healthy. So whenever anything happens, we tell ourselves a story. You did this, it means that. Someone is walking across the street here in Miami and they are carrying something in their hand and they intentionally drop it, you can tell, in the middle of the street. Now, I've never seen that happen. I just made up a story. But number one, you could see it. Number two, we continue the story. They dropped it because. So you are telling yourself stories in every interaction. What you want to do is to tell yourself better stories. Yeah. You're already telling yourself outlandish fabrications as to why people are doing things and what their motivations are. So begin to tell yourself better stories. Argue with the stories you are telling yourself. Well, you know, I really can't say that for sure. I really don't know that to be true. I'm sure that at their core, they meant well, but do you see what I mean? And the most important thing is, listen to me. If you haven't clicked shared yet, now's the time to click share because your friends and family need to hear this. And if you're multitasking, you need to come back. You need to tell yourself stories in your head where you're the victor, not the victim. Where you are the victor, not the victim. Where in difficult and uncomfortable situations, you overcome them. You're Luke Skywalker. You are Wonder Woman. You're the Black Panther. Every great story, Joseph Campbell showed us this in The Hero's Journey. Every hero's journey has the downside. And the hero tells themselves the story that there's going to be an upside, and there always is. So you've got to begin to tell yourself stories in your head where you are the victor and not the victim. When someone acts rude to you, it's because they're rude. It's not because you deserve rudeness. Begin to tell yourself better stories because your life is a result of the stories you tell yourself. You don't like the way your life is in any given area? Tell yourself better stories. I struggled for years with relationships, all relationships. And someone said, you should read How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I said, I read it back in my 20s. Well, obviously not well enough. So I think so far this year, I have probably read that book, and by that I mean listened to the audio 7 times. 7 times. I've also downloaded the book itself so that I can read it in spare moments. There's an old saying in Buddhism, to know and not to do is not yet to know. So if you want to become the victor in your life and stop being the victim in any area of your life, tell yourself better stories. Stop telling yourself you can't and start telling yourself you can. Because the truth is, you can. If you believe in yourself, try hard enough, and never stop until you win. Thanks again for being with me today. Please, again, click share and let your friends and family be excited and experience the life of being a jump starter. And thank you for being a jump starter and jump starting today with me. For those of you who are in our meditation program, we'll be live there at 8:30 Eastern Time. If you have not joined, and every time I mention it, somebody new joins, it seems, www.complaintfreemeditation.com. Love you all. I'll see you tomorrow. Even though it's Veterans Day, we'll be here. Bye-bye.
No more, no more complaining people. Their lives are changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free